This rude woman refuses to leave no parking zone, so construction workers get the best revenge. Though I don't think rules should always be obeyed and never questioned, I do think it's vital to respect them and always keep in mind that there's probably a solid reason why they've been established. This narrative definitely makes use of this. Permission to sign a parking space, no parking was granted to construction workers so they could finish challenging tasks. The parking spots at the foot of the hill were set aside for them to make their life a little bit easier, as they were already compelled to carry heavy logs uphill. But one lady made the egotistical decision to not only flout the rules, but also to neglect their needs in order to satisfy her own. But that was something she would soon come to regret deeply. No parking is a sign that's clear enough for me to grasp, but the woman in this case seemed to think she was exempt from the restrictions. Individuals often come up with inventive methods to cope with drivers, but one woman was so rude that she required a lasting lesson. This astute Larkspur, California construction worker, knew just how to extract his retribution. Fortunately for us, he later shared the news with the world on social media. User BeefyQ_lunch begins describing himself as a foreman for a new house being built in an odd area in his Reddit post. Only a pathway leads 250 feet up a hill to the home. We have to carry all of our supplies up this walkway by hand. The construction worker wrote, handily carrying a complete home up this slope is a pain in the ass. 2 parking places at the base of the hill were a lifesaver for the workers. Only the construction workers were allowed to park in such spots. Official no parking signs were also present and prominently displayed at both locations. However, the foreman said that because there is a school nearby, a lot of parents believe it is okay to use the sites a few times a day. I'll let it go if someone is parked in the designated locations and we don't need to park a truck or have a delivery. However, there are instances when the foreman has asked the parents to relocate their automobiles since locations are needed. Most of the time they act right away. As of right now, he wrote, the foreman confronted a driver who, despite his courteous requests, would not move her vehicle out of a no parking zone. While all of the construction workers worked calmly, an impolite woman blocked their path and hindered their job. The foreman came over to inform the driver that she needed to relocate since they had a delivery coming up and they required the space after learning about the issue. However, the woman was impolite enough to offer a chill pill rather than following the law or even basic decency. I'll just be a few minutes and your truck isn't here. She sneers at me in return. Dude, take a chill pill. The foreman recollected. Instead of losing patience, the man devised a dependable strategy to discipline the lady. I smiled at her through the glass, doing my best impression. He writes, she set it down halfway and yells, what? I tell her the truck is pulled up alongside her car, and I politely ask her again with a stronger tone of voice to move her vehicle, reminding her that she's illegally parked in a tow-away zone, he said. Then she offers me this brilliant thought. Can't you guys just unload around me? She asks. It's not that hard. The foreman then grinned and turned to go running through the clever scheme in his mind. I instruct the delivery driver to park as close to her as possible and block her in with the porta potty that's at one end of our reserve spots and the parked car that's parked just adjacent to our spots on the other end. The foreman stated he smiles because he understands what I'm trying to do right away and proceeds to expertly block this lady and her car into a little 2 parking spot jail. In order to inform them of the issue, the foreman contacted the police parking enforcement while his workers were unstrapping the lumber and humping it up the hill. I wasn't trying to get her in trouble, but I just wanted a record of why we were blocking part of the street so we don't get in trouble with the city, he explained. Amidst all of this, the woman's child materialized. The foreman stated that mom is only now realizing that she can't get out of her driver's door to greet her child since the lumber truck is parked so close. Glaring at me in the vehicle, she clumsily climbs across the inside of her car and falls out the passenger door. The driver packs her child in the rear throughout this procedure and starts to understand that she has no means of getting out of here right now. Suddenly, the mother was rushing. She yelled at the construction workers, demanding that they immediately move their dreadful vehicle. The delivery driver grinned and said, "Ma'am, we had to unstrap the lumber in order to unload it on the truck, and per our company policy, I'm not allowed to move the truck with any unsecured load on it," before the foreman could reply. Apologies, the woman loses it, yelling profanities at a blood pressure level that would cause an ear aneurysm. Your guidelines? The lady yells, I have to get somewhere. At this exact moment, the parking enforcement officer arrives and parks behind the truck with perfectly timed precision. The foreman remarks nonchalantly, "Can't you just pull out around it?" While the officer is still getting out of her car and the woman doesn't see the police approach. "It's not that difficult," he exclaimed, grinning broadly. "Faster is you." She responds with a cry of her own, storms back to her car, and then fiercely struggles back through the passenger door and into the driver's seat. The parking enforcement officer approaches the vehicle at this moment, but before she can even say hello, The woman in the car slams on the brakes and puts the car in reverse, smashing into our porta potty and toppling it. She then attempts to mount the curb and drive on the sidewalk by putting the car in gear. As she crosses the curb halfway and becomes stuck, the foreman, the delivery guy, and the cop are all gazing at her in shock. From inside her car, I can hear her yelling profanities over the idle truck. With promptitude, the officer approaches the car's door and gives her the order to exit. Watching her expression turn to horror when she realizes she'd just done all that in front of a police officer is my favorite moment of the entire film. The foreman reported that once the parking officer calls for a second unit and slaps her in handcuffs, she is immediately seated on the identical curb that she attempted to drive over. The woman would then put up even more of a struggle, screaming and claiming the police that they never even asked her to move, and that she was told she could stay in the parking area. For the lady, however, things only grew worse. At the conclusion of the adventure, she was taken into custody and charged with reckless driving, driving with a suspended license, child endangerment, her child was in the back of the car the entire time, and property destruction, damaging the porta potty. She also had her car towed in addition to everything else. Grandma went to spend some much needed time in a jail, and the child went home with her. The supervisor noted, "I think next time she'll probably think twice about parking in a tow-away zone if she ever gets a license again." I love this foreman so much. He is far more patient than I am. The mother seems to have a habit of being completely inconvenienced at the worst possible moments. Making an appearance in front of a judge should serve as a reality check. The moral of the story is to avoid acting like a rude fool when operating a suspended vehicle.